What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Garrett. Today we're going to be doing a manual transfer case swap on my 2005 Toyota 4Runner. The reason I'm doing the swap is because one, I want to, and the transfer case, the manual transfer case swap is sweet. Secondly, because my actuators somewhere, I believe on the transfer case, have gone bad. So it won't switch into 4 high or 4 low. So I have no 4-wheel drive right now. In order to get that, the actuator replaced and get that fixed and stuff, I'm looking at between $800 to $1,000 plus, versus doing the manual transfer case swap. It's like I'm in it for like $450 total. The manual transfer case I picked up out of a 2010 Toyota 4Runner, and it had 117,000 miles on it. And that cost me like $320, $350, something like that. Plus you need a drive shaft spacer for the V6s. I believe you need a drive shaft spacer. Some of the V8s, I'm not sure really if you need a drive shaft spacer. I haven't heard of them using one. The electronic actuator stuff is just so irritating to me. I cannot stand it. Sometimes it will go, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would, activate, sometimes it wouldn't. So I'm just tired of dealing with all that, and I need something that's absolutely reliable. So for the V8s, for your front diff, there's no ADD. So there's no like electronic actuator stuff for the V8s. For the V6s, we do have the electronic actuator thing on the front of there as well. I want to do completely away with electronic actuating anything. I don't want no electronic actuating, nothing that has to do with 4-wheel drive on this truck at all. So what I'm gonna do is, I thought about taking that the differential extension tube and getting one off of a V8, but I can't find one unless I buy the whole front diff, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is probably manually move it to the activated position where that other CV is engaged. And so when I do that, that way both of the front tires will be engaged all the time. It will still be 2-wheel drive, but the front two will still spin. I know there's a little bit of talk around that, or saying, that puts too much wear and tear on your transfer case. But when the V8 guys switch over to a manual transfer case, I mean, they're doing the same thing and none of them have any problems. So basically what I'm doing with this truck, I will be the exact same as a V8 as far as the transfer case drivetrain situation goes. So that's pretty much all the information I think you guys need as far as this thing goes. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. So this is the transfer case that I picked up. So this is 2 high, this is 4 high, this is neutral, and that's 4 low. So basically this stick will be in the truck. So when I wanna be in 4-wheel drive, I just put it in neutral, literally move that over like that and put it back in drive, and I'm in 4 high versus sitting there and waiting on electronic actuators. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to drain our oil from our transfer case. This is the electronic actuator, and then this right here is the transfer case. So I'm gonna drain all the oil from here, and then we'll disconnect the drive shaft and start unplugging everything that we need to unplug. All right, while that's draining, I'm gonna let that just keep pouring out. I'm gonna go ahead and start undoing my drive shaft. So I'm gonna disconnect this tab from the actuator, just like that. That to the side. All right, so once all your connections are undone, take the hose off, and then you take the connector off. There is one bracket up in here that's holding on this connector here. You can take that off, that way when you drop the transfer case, you don't pull on that too much. The next thing we're gonna do is unbolt these bolts here. There's this bolt, and they go around. They're mainly on the passenger side of the truck. And there's another one that's going to be up at the very top. And then there's also 2 on this side of the truck facing towards the front of the truck. There's that one right there, and then there's another one. And there's another one right there. For the one that's facing the front, you're gonna have to use a wrench, but all the rest of these should come out. And so we're gonna go ahead and just start unbolting all those. I've got my front drive shaft disconnected and the rear drive shaft disconnected. So now we're gonna go ahead and start unbolting the actual transfer case. And when you drop the transfer case, it might be helpful to put a jack up underneath of it, because this thing is extremely heavy. So just stick a jack up under it, jack it up, and then when you pull the transfer case off, you're gonna have to pull it back a little bit, and then it'll drop. So just make sure that you either have some extra help or you use a jack. Okay, so one hiccup that I ran into is the tight bolt that's up here. So this is the bottom of the truck and this is looking up into here. This bolt, if you can see, it's unbolted all the way onto this transmission mount right here. So the bolt won't back off anymore. So what I'm gonna have to do is unbolt all the rest of the transfer case and then just move the whole transfer case forward this way. And then that way this bolt will scoot down and then I'll just back it off some more. And then kind of keep doing that until I get this bolt all the way out. But the way that this is, there's no way that I'm getting this bolt out like that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and swap these two caps right here. I'm gonna make sure it's in too high. That way when I put it in, I can make sure it's in the right gear. I'm gonna take this shifter off and put this cap on here just to be able to cover it. So that way when I go to the shop and cut the hole in the truck, I don't have any debris fall in there. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I will have to have oil to put in here. So I'm gonna throw that in there and then it'll be ready to be able to drive to the shop and we can move to the next phase after that. Another thing I forgot to mention is, so for the front drive shaft, which is going to be this one here, these studs are going to have to be knocked out so that we can fit the drive shaft into there. So one of these studs was missing from the actual transfer case that I bought, but I'm going to take one off the old one, so that really doesn't matter. But I'm going to put these on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and hammer them and just pop them out. So everything is pretty much done. There's these wires here. I forgot which one is which. I'm gonna look it up and then I'll tell you. But one of them is 4 low and one of them is 4 high. I'll put up what all these are for once I remember. But we're gonna keep all these wires. So I just have them zip tied out of the way so that when I put it up in there and drive to the shop, I don't have to worry about anything messing up on me. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take this thing and I'm gonna throw this up into the truck. All right, so now we're inside the truck. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to start taking off all the center stuff right here. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna start by kind of pulling this section up here. You're gonna lift this side up, pull this section up, and then there will be some connections under here. Just unhook these, pull these out, and you can start setting all your plastics to the side. Be careful with it and make sure that you don't pop anything or break anything. So there's a couple bolts here that are holding some of this stuff on, like here, 2 up here, some here. So we're just gonna kind of start taking that off because we need to get all the way down to the base, down to where the metal is at. And these are all just a bunch of 10mm bolts. And you're also going to have 2 in the actual glove box here. All right, so once you've got those 2 out of the center here, this whole thing will lift up. And make sure that you have everything disconnected. There's a little connection under here. Make sure that you disconnect that as well. Perfect. All right, so now that that's out, this right here, this tube duct thing, this is for the airflow to the back seat. Now, because I don't really have people like in the back seat like that, except, you know, my little siblings and stuff like that, they're fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out, which when you do the manual shift, this has to be taken out anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this thing and get this off. So now this will pull out. So I'm gonna take off this bracket here. That's what held on the air duct, and we don't need that anymore. So now we've got a series of 12mm bolts that we're gonna take out. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the shifter, we're gonna move it out of the way because we're gonna have to drill a hole kind of in this area here. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start unhooking the shifter. So there'll be some cords taped to it. I'm just gonna cut the tape off so that I can move this actual shifter. And there's some more connections here. Just disconnect those. Just a connection here. Pop that out. There's also a connection in the shifter. Pull that one out. All right, so now most of the stuff is out of the way. You do right here have your cable that goes to your emergency brake. I'm just gonna pop these out. All right. So disconnected that. I'm gonna move this over. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna drill a hole, and I'm gonna check and look in that hole and see if I can see the top of where my transfer case is. Once I figure out where that is, then I'll just go ahead and start cutting around that. All right, so I drilled a hole under and looked, and actually, the transfer case looks like it's coming out up here. This is where it looks like the hole is at. So these two are way too far back. I'm gonna start unbolting some of this, and I'm gonna lift this whole bracket off and start going from there. So I've got my boundary set from this side. This is the edge of one. This is the edge of another. This is about the back, and this is about the top. So I'm just gonna draw a square, and I'm just gonna cut that square out. All right, so I lost my marker, but I used electrical tape and marked out my square, looking through these holes that I drilled, and be able to see where I drilled at. Now for the gear shift, the 2 mounting points are here and here. I think I will just barely lose this one. Or I'm gonna try to hold on to this one, but I may end up losing it. But if you lose this one mounting point, you'll be fine because you still have 3 others. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting this hole out. That cut was honestly a lot easier than I had assumed it would be. It came out honestly perfect. So what I'm gonna do now that I have this cut, and also I was able to retain my shifter point to be able to mount it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go ahead, and I'm not sure the steps of what everybody else does, but I'm gonna go ahead and take this cap off, fit my shifter in there, and then from there I'll be able to see kind of what direction it goes and where I need to move it. Because I know that the shifter needs to be in this area somewhere. So apparently it's gonna have to come back and up. So I don't know, we'll go from there and we'll kind of see, but I'm gonna go ahead and take this off, and then we'll mount the actual shifter on. There we go. All right, so that is our cap off. Now I'm gonna put our manual shifter on. All right, so I've got my 2 front bolts on there. And I'm just gonna kind of tighten them up because I wanna test this thing and make sure that it shifts into the gear that it's supposed to be in. So I'm gonna try to put it in neutral. Okay. All right, so the truck is in neutral now. And I'm gonna take it and try to put it in 4 high. Yes, it works. Put it back in neutral. So that's 4 high. That's neutral. Yep, that works. And then that's his 4 high. Sorry, that over there is 4 low. And then now it's in 2 high. All right, so we know that works. So that is absolutely amazing. Now is kind of the part where we have to figure out which direction and how we should route it. So my buddy Charlie Odom just sent me a photo from Instagram. And as you can see, this is how he has the shifter coming up. I think I'm just gonna copy exactly what he just sent me and go from there because this looks like it works perfectly. So basically we're gonna have the shifter come directly over and then we'll have it come back and up. I think that's probably the best option because honestly, the way that this sits right here, this shifter is going to have to come this way. It's got to. I did go to Lowe's and I did pick up this bar right here. This bar is, I think it's 1/2 inch. Whatever it is, it's pretty much the exact same as the shifter. So I'm gonna basically cut this and we'll just have to keep fitting up and making sure that we're in the right position. But you can pick this up. I got this for like $8 at Lowe's. So this is probably what you want to use for your projects like this. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this thing in a vise and I'm gonna cut like right here at the base, right where it's straight. I'm gonna cut there. And that way I'm gonna make a 2-inch extension up and then I'm gonna make it come over. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. So this is the extension that I made come off the side. So I made a 2-inch extension up, and then I made a 3 1/4 inch extension over, and then it's gonna come back this way and up next to the shifter. Okay, so here's a pretty simple way that you can test to make sure that your shifter's in the right spot. So I've got my shifter here. So first off, this right here is where your shifter is gonna come out of. So if you flip this upside down, it looks like it's got clips in it. If you pop these clips, this whole thing should come out. There we go. All right. So this, you're gonna lose your cigarette lighter because that's where that is. But anyway, this right here is where your shifter is gonna come through. So you can set this here to kind of line it up, I guess. So that's exactly where it's gonna be. So I'll take my shifter, put this here, take my shifter, and I want my shifter to come out about like this. Be mindful of what gear you're in, because when you do still have to move this thing around to 4 high, 4 low, and all that. So since I'm in 4 high, I'm all the way up and over. I want it to kind of come like this. So I'm gonna have an extension come back. So however many inches that is, I'll make the extension come up to here, and then I will cut and weld that on. This is pretty much what I've come up with for the shifter so far. The only thing I'm not sure about is because it shifts and moves around. I don't know if I'll be hitting anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna install it all, put a few bolts in here and see how it acts and see if I can move it around. I put just enough tacks on there to where it shouldn't break off perfectly, but we'll see. So I'm gonna put this in there and see and make sure it doesn't hit anything. All right, so I'm gonna set the shifter in here. So if you can see in here, there are 2 slots. There's this one slot here that's that looking at it from my direction, it's down to the right, and then there's another slot up there that is up to the left. The shifter is going to sit in the slot that is down to the right. So that's what this piece right here needs to go into. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the key on and check this thing and see how it works. All right, so I'm in neutral. So I'm in 4 high, 4 low. All right, so problem is I can't move the stick back far enough because as you can see right here, it's too close and it's hitting. So basically I'll cut it off where I had welded the first one on, and I'll just make an extension that goes forward, and that's just what I'm gonna have to do. And that will give us access to move it around, because right now I can't move into anything because this gear shifter's in the way. When you're doing this, it's really just trial and error. You're not gonna get it perfect the first time. Maybe you will after watching my video of me struggle, but after a few tries, just test and fit. Don't fully weld your stuff up yet until you've like test fitted everything up and you know it's gonna work. So this is what the shifter looks like so far. Honestly, I think this looks pretty cool. But I just have to cut, so to be more clear, I have to cut here and I have to weld an extension out this way first. And then that way it'll give me room so I'm not hitting the shifter. When I do that, I may have to cut more up front towards this direction, like in this area, but we'll test it up and we'll see. Okay, so I made a couple revisions, and I didn't bore you guys with filming me just cutting a 2-inch piece. I cut a piece, made it 2 inches longer. So this is what we're working with now. Now because I did this, it's probably going to mess up my clearance in the front. So I'll probably have to cut further up front, but that's okay. And I knew that I was gonna probably run into some problems. So because I did that, it threw it further. I didn't think about the fact that my extension down here, I'll have to probably bring back, because I think honestly that this is too far forward. It's gonna have to come back for sure, at least a good 2 inches. All right, so we're in neutral, and we're gonna move it back to 4 high. That's good, we got good clearance down there. And then move it over to 4 low. So that works. Yeah. All right, so everything works fine. So because this stick is all the way up front, so you wanna have your stick moved all the way back because you wanna make sure you know how much clearance you've got. I'll bring it back 2 inches. So what I'll do is I'll just cut this piece here. I'll bring it back 2 inches and then weld this stick back on. So I've got my extension in. I'm gonna test it again, see how it fits up. All right, so neutral. And then I'm in 4 low right there. I'd say that's probably good. Well, the next thing I'm gonna do is just weld this whole thing up, finish it, and then that'll be it. All right, so this is what we've come up with for the shifter. I think it looks pretty darn good. The way that it turned out, it's pretty sturdy. It's not gonna end up breaking on me. Plus, there's really not gonna be that much force on it anyway. But that's what we're working with. What I did was I made a 2-inch extension coming this way. Went up, I think like another 2 inches maybe. I went over about 3.5 and then back another 2. And then this is the stock one right here. Don't forget to put your boot on. I forgot to put this on twice, but then the last time I had to make a cut, I remembered to throw this thing on. And this is gonna basically go down there. So that's pretty much it for this. The last stuff is just basically cleaning it up, fitting it up, and then we're gonna do the wiring and the ADD delete later.
All right guys, so I wanted to pause the video real quick to mention a couple things that I did not mention in the video. So for the shifter, when it comes to the shifter, make sure that you have enough clearance for your shifter, because if you do not have enough clearance for your shifter, what's going to happen is, and I've seen this with another buddy that we actually did transfer case swap at the same time. If you don't have enough clearance and if your shifter is hitting on any sort of metal around the shifter, it'll end up kicking it into a different gear. So with him, whenever he would drive forward, what it would do is it would kick it back into 4 high, which you don't want to happen. You don't want that stuff kicking back and forth. So make sure that you have enough clearance. Another thing, make sure that you're not welding too much metal onto your shifter, because the way that the shifter is designed, it's designed to come straight up. So the way that obviously in the video that I built it, it came over and then back up. That is going to add more weight this way when actually it's designed to have the weight on the front. It's okay, but just make sure that you don't make it come too far back or have too much metal on the rear. You want to make it try to make it as straight and light as possible. So I would recommend doing it the way that I did it is good. When you drive, it does shake a little bit. It's just natural, just what it does. So that's fine. The next thing I want to touch on is the wiring. This is a major thing when it comes to you know, getting the wiring and the lights and stuff working, because when you do this transfer case swap, what happens is your 4 low lights will sit there and they'll just flash the whole time and your cruise control won't work. Now, I was able to get the cruise control to work and the lights to stop flashing. However, I couldn't get the 4 low lights to engage whenever I would be in 4 low or 4 high or any of that. So none of that stuff would work. But I mean, if you know what you're doing and you drive a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you know when it's in 4-wheel drive, and obviously you can look at the stick and see. But as far as getting those lights to activate, I couldn't do it. I wired the transfer case lights and the 4-wheel drive stuff, all that stuff wouldn't work. Now in the video, what you'll see me do is you'll see me tap a yellow wire into a brown, I believe it's like a brown and white wire. When I did that, all the lights went off and it worked fine. The cruise control was able to come back on, the 4 low lights stopped flashing, all that worked. So if you want to do that, if you want to get those lights off, all you have to do is really just connect those 2 wires. Another thing is that when you do that, and you disconnect that 4-wheel drive ECU, your traction control does not work, which is another thing that you need to be mindful of. So you'll always be in rear-wheel drive unless you put it in 4 high. And it's just everything's just going more manual and getting away from the electronic stuff. If you feel like you need traction control, this is something to be mindful of because you won't have it. You know, so your tail end will slide out if you try to make it, which is also a plus because a lot of us do the traction control delete anyway. So, you know, it's like you get, I don't know, it seems like all the pros are just with the manual transfer case. So that's something to be mindful of when you're doing the manual transfer case. Another thing that I want to talk about is people ask a lot about the center locker. When I switch to the manual transfer case, is my center locker going to be gone? You know, what happens when I'm not able to use a center locker? I'm not going to get into the weeds because I don't understand it totally. But from what I understand, when you go into 4 low or 4 high, it automatically distributes power 50-50 to the front and rear. So it acts as a center locker already. The selectable center locker for, you know, the V6s and all that, I heard that it was really stupid and that there was really no point in having all that. But whenever you go into 4-wheel drive or 4 high and all that, the center lock, it already acts as a center locker. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just, imagine your center locker is engaged anytime you move that stick. So you don't have to worry about any of that. So that's another pro. I went wheeling with this setup, had an awesome time. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. So that's just some things to be mindful of. So I wanted to pause this video to kind of talk about some of these things because I know that these are questions that people are going to have. Without any further ado, let's get back to the video.
So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to drop down this bottom section of the, like up under where the feet go on the passenger side. And then right here is where we need to get to, these wires here. This is gonna be for your 4-wheel drive system. Okay, so the way that we're gonna do this is we are going to splice some wires from this connector here into this connector right here. This box right here for your 4-wheel drive ECU is pretty much gonna be useless after we do this. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this plug here and this one here. We're gonna be splicing 2 wires from each of these into the other ones. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and wire the 4 low lights. So I have one of these quick splice connectors here. So we're going to wire the yellow wire out of the one on the left. So this wire here, we're going to wire that with the brown and white wire, which is going to be this one here. Okay, so you see it's got brown, and it's also got white. So we're gonna wire in those. So these are the 2 that are gonna be for your 4 low lights. So I'm gonna go ahead and wire those together. So those are connected. Next, I believe is for the 4 high. So we're gonna take the blue and red from this one here on the left, and we're gonna connect that with the green and red from the one on the right. And we're gonna connect those 2. Now, I did, from just connecting these 2 wires, the yellow one and the brown one, I had to go drive somewhere and I turned my truck on and my 4 low lights went off. So already by connecting these 2 wires here, my 4 low flashing lights are already gone. Now we just have to wire them so that the truck knows when they're activated. So I've got my 2 wires here. So I'm gonna go ahead and use one of these splicers, and I'm gonna connect these 2 together. All right, so we've got those 2 wired in just like that. So that's all that we need to do for the inside. So the inside wiring is already done. It's super simple. Again, this ECU here is gonna be pretty much useless now, but our 4 low lights for the inside are completely connected. So now there's the wires on the actual transfer case that we have to connect to the ADD harness that we took off from down below. Okay, so we're underneath the truck here. So we've got the transfer case. This is the front of the truck. So the wires that I was telling you all about in the beginning, this one right here on the right is going to be your 4 high. This is gonna be your 4 high wire. There's 2 on the left. The one that's closest to the front of the truck is gonna be your 4 low. And one that's farthest backwards is gonna be this green one, I believe. Yeah, so this green one. This one right here is your neutral. I'm gonna just zip tie this up because I don't need it, honestly. But I do need the 4 low. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut these 2 wires. We're just gonna cut this connector off, and then we're gonna splice these 2 wires into each other. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a wire from our ADD 4-wheel drive connector. We're gonna take the yellow wire, as you can see right there. The yellow wire is gonna go into the 4 low, and then I believe it's the red and blue wire, which is gonna be, I think, this one. This one is gonna connect into our 4 high. So basically all we're gonna do is we're just gonna splice these lights together, or splice these wires together, and then that will get our lights operational and working. Okay, so here is what I did with the wire basically. I heat shrunk it. So we've got our 2 black wires, and then we've got our 1 yellow wire from the connections. So we just connected basically all 3 of those together, and that is how our 4 low works. So now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side with this one for the 4 high. Okay, so I've got my hole completely cut out for the shifter, so the shifter can move around freely. I did have to cut up a little bit further so that it could shift into 4 low up in this area. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the shifter off. So I'm gonna do these few bolts that I put in here, pull this thing off, and I'm gonna rebuild the shifter. I do have another, it's like a washer bushing type deal in there. I'll put that in the description so you guys know where to pick that up if you need to replace it. The one in here is pretty shot. So basically I'm gonna pull the shifter out and go ahead and rebuild it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall it back on, and then we can start cleaning up all this stuff and getting this truck put back together. So this is the shifter. This is the bottom of the shifter. As you can see in there, there's just like a ton of gunk and crap in there. It shifts fine, but still it's a bunch of mess in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and start rebuilding this thing. So here's the washer piece I was talking about. It kind of sits down in there. And then here's like the part number and stuff like that. I'm gonna pop this spring here at the bottom out, set that to the side. And then at the top here, there is this clamp. You're just gonna squeeze this and the whole thing will come apart. All right. So I'm gonna take this out, set that to the side. And then I'm gonna pull the shifter out. So as you can see in here, once upon a time, that used to be that green piece that we are replacing. Used to back in the day. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna clean all this stuff up. I got some parts cleaner and brake cleaner, so I'm just gonna clean up all this mess and get it wiped down and get it oiled up real good. That way we can go ahead and start putting everything back together. All right, and then I'm gonna take this gasket off right here because I have gasket maker. So there's also a little rubber washer in there. This thing seems to be in really good shape. So I'm not gonna replace this. I don't have another one to replace it with even if I wanted to, but this thing's in really good shape. So we've got the shifter here, and then we've got the shifter seat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and grease this up a little bit. So once you get it in, it'll fit like this. It was a really, really tight fit, and honestly, for a second there, I was worried that it wasn't the right size. But just check the bottom and make sure that all your stuff is sealed up. So now that this stuff is in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and grease my shifter, stick my shifter in there, and make sure I put everything back the exact same way that I took it out. So this clip is way harder to get on once you have that new bushing. Let's say you have that new seat in there. It drove me to the point almost of insanity, but anyway. All right, so now our shifter is rebuilt, it's sealed. So we should be good to go for that. I have some gasket maker. I'm gonna put on the transfer case. I'm gonna clean the top of the transfer case off. put that gasket maker on there. That way we have a clean seal as far as this goes. Okay, so I ended up getting a rubber boot as well to go over this hole. So the boot should sit like this. So I think that's actually enough space. And I also have some sound deadening material that I'm gonna be using. So I'm gonna clean all this off, and then I'm gonna put the sound deadening material all around it. And then, because with all these extra holes, it does get louder. I've driven around for about a week now with it like this, and you can hear everything under the truck. So I just want to make sure that I seal this off really good and get all this stuff taken care of and out of the way. All right, so I've got all the sound deadening material where I want it. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put my boot on. All right, so I've got my boot on. I use these self-tapping, these are actually roofing screws, so they've got like a seal around them. All right, so now we're able to shift comfortably, and this boot is doing its thing. So we can shift into 4 low, neutral, 4 high, and then 2 high, and not have this boot hinder this thing when it's in any sort of a gear too much. So I just cut a longer slit in it. So, all right, so now that's perfect. That's set up the way we need it. So now basically we're just gonna start putting this thing back together. And the last thing we really have to do is to take our other boot that we got and install it into this spot. So basically it'll end up looking like stock. And then I'm gonna take our centerpiece here. I'm gonna clip this on. All right, so we've got our center console on here. So now I'm gonna test fit up this piece here. Make sure that fits down in there and all that sits good. So now I'm gonna shift it to neutral. So that's 4 high and that's 4 low right there. So I'm in 4 low without it hitting or touching on anything, which is great. It doesn't hit here, it's a fraction of an inch away from the left edge here, or my left edge. So everything fits up really well, honestly. I'm really happy with it. So I'm test fitting all of this before I put the boot on, with the interior boot anyway. So I know earlier I was talking about having to cut off some of this. You actually don't have to cut off any of that because it fits just fine. But I ended up getting this shift boot here. So because when you're in 4 high, it'll move all the way forward, I'm gonna have this seam at the front. That way it has more angle that way. So it is glued onto this sort of bracket thing here. I'm gonna take it off of that. So you can see if it's sitting like this, you can either glue it in there or you can screw it in there. So yeah, I think that's probably what I do. I ended up gluing it. So then once it's all said and done, once I get it glued in, I mean, this thing looks stock. I mean, honestly. Okay, so hopefully this lasts a long time and actually works correctly. All right, so after getting my fingers caked in super glue, I have the boot glued on. As you can see at the bottom, I literally just went ahead and glued around the bottom and stuff. But anyway, I'm gonna get this thing set on here. So once I clean up the front, we'll be good, but I mean, that looks like stock. So it now shifts into 4 high, 4 low. I've got 4-wheel drive now. I don't have to worry about not having it. That's perfect. So I'm super happy with it. Again, I'm gonna clean all this stuff up, so just ignore this, but you guys have the basic concept for hooking this thing up. So when you do a transfer case swap, this is what you will be looking like. Okay, so we're up under the truck. Now we're gonna have to do the ADD. So my original plan was to take this part, which is the tube extension shaft, whatever you want to call it. So the ADD is hooked from here over, and then this right here is going to be this is your front differential. This is the driver side. This is the passenger side. So right now, if we were to lift the truck up completely off the ground, the rear wheel and put it in 4 low, the rear wheels would be spinning, the front driver wheel would be spinning, but the front passenger wheel would not spin because this ADD is not actuated. Now, there might be 2 ways you may be able to do this. One, you may be able to get your ADD to actuate on its own and then unplug it. It doesn't throw any I checked, it doesn't throw any codes when you unplug it. Of course, I do already have my 4-wheel drive system thing, the light delete that we did earlier, I do already have that done. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. But basically all we're gonna do is we're gonna take this off. There's a little piece in there we're gonna move over, and then we're gonna put this thing back on, and that will make sure that our our driver's side is engaged, because there's like a little piece and it slides over onto one of the shaft pieces in here and all that. So we're gonna get to that when we get to it, but right now we're gonna take off these two bolts down here and the two up top. The one at the top left is a little bit tricky to get to, but right now what I have is like a small extension, or a small ratchet, and then a little short extension on it, and then a 12mm socket on there. So we're gonna get all these undone. There is gonna be some oil that's gonna come out, and you do have a connector here that you are gonna have to disconnect off from the ADD before we pull this out. If you want, you can just get one of these up from a V8, which was my original plan was to get one from a V8, because they do not have the ADD and their fronts are always engaged. But I couldn't find one that was just this section here without this whole front diff, and I didn't want to have to buy all that and fool with any of that stuff. So I'm just going to do this and unplug it. When my buddy was telling me that was probably going to be the best option, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. All right, so here's one of the bolts. So we're just going to take out all 4 of them. All right, so now we've got out our 4 bolts. Everything's disconnected. So I'm gonna pull this, put this under. I don't know how much oil is gonna come out. And it's probably a good idea to drain your fluid out of your differential before you do this. You know, as you know, I like to do things the hard way. So I'm gonna kind of give this a little tap and try to, there we go. See if I can break it loose. All right. So this is the actuator that moves, and I'll give you guys a close-up on it, but it moves that sort of clutch in there. So what we're gonna do is basically, because I know it's not engaged, we're gonna move it over. So basically we're gonna move that ring in there over to the right. I thought it was to the left, but it's over to the right. And that's what's gonna engage this wheel to be 4-wheel drive as well. Look at that. That's why my actuator was not working, because there's water pouring out of it right now. So it may have been my front one that was causing the issue, or it may have been the rear, I don't know. I just couldn't get 4-wheel drive to engage, but it's got water all in there. And with the manual swap, this whole thing is gonna be pretty much totally obsolete. So this ring thing in here, this is what we need to move. So as you can see right now, it's pushed over to the left. We need to move it over to the right. And then once we move it over to the right, we're gonna take our one from down here, and we're gonna move that little arm in there over to the right as well. And then that's what's gonna make sure that our stuff is engaged. Okay, so we've now got our little sleeve piece moved over to the right. Now, if you have this thing moved over too far, it won't line up correct. So you wanna make sure that there's some little gears that it's on. You wanna make sure that it's lined up on those gears and not too far over. I had it too far over before and it won't line up that way. So you just wanna make sure that it's lined up like this, and to where that it's flush with those gears on the side there. Okay, so my actuator arm was totally seized. The motor was totally seized up in there. I have it, as you can see, I have it moved over. So it mounts onto the truck so it's gonna mount onto the truck this way. So I've got the arm moved over. Now, if it is seized, you're gonna have to take off this cap. This thing was so full of water and seized, and I was squeezing on this thing and nothing was moving, so I ended up having to take it off. The screw stripped when I tried to take it off, so what I did was I took a pair of channel locks and locked it on, and then ended up pulling those screws, getting those screws twisted out. So as you can see, this is why I hate electronic actuators. They get on my nerves, I can't stand them. And so this thing's pretty jacked up. So this wheel right here will make this arm turn. All right, so I've got this thing lined up right. I'm gonna put some gasket maker on here and seal her up, and that will lock in this side here. All right, we're all set.
Alright guys, that pretty much wraps up the tutorial for this video. There are a few important things I do want to go over though. But first, if this video was helpful for you guys, definitely like and subscribe. And leave a comment down below if it was helpful for you or any comments that you guys probably have. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comment section, of course. I wanted to start posting out more content for you guys to be able to check out. I have started a video production business, so all my time really has been going to that. But I definitely want to start getting more into posting more videos about the rig and the truck and stuff like that. So if you guys have any content ideas, definitely leave them down in the comment section below so I can check it out and start making some more videos for you guys. I'm definitely always open to ideas. This video is probably the only video about a manual transfer case swap for a 4th gen 4Runner that teaches you actually how to do it. And I had to scrounge around for all the different bits of information, and my buddy James has a manual transfer case on his, so he called me and walked me through it. So hopefully this video helps you guys out when you're looking to do one for yours. So when I was in Utah hanging out with my best friend James, he had the manual transfer case, and I saw it and I was like, dude, what is that? And he told me what it was. And I was like, ooh, I need that, because my transfer case, which as we now know is due to the front ADD, my 4-wheel drive stopped working mid-trip in Utah while we were out there. So, you know, me and James were out there wheeling with a bunch of his buddies and stuff. We were all hanging out. And then I ran into this issue towards the end of the trip. This transfer case swap was absolutely one of the best upgrades that I've made for my rig to date, as I've said multiple times before. The fact of being able to switch from 4 low to 2 high in a matter of 3 seconds has been instrumental. You know, when I'm out wheeling, I recently took a wheeling trip to Windrock in Tennessee, and just wheeling out there and not having to have people wait on me because my actuators are taking forever, or having to stop in a line of guys like, hey guys, hold on, I'm waiting for my 4-wheel drive to activate. Just being able to do it within 2 or 3 seconds has been absolutely instrumental, and I love it. I haven't had any issues out of it. A couple important things that we need to talk about though. So I got this transfer case out of a 2010 Toyota 4Runner, and it had, I believe, 110,000 miles on it. No issues out of it at all. And this transfer case cost me, this whole swap cost me about $400 and maybe tops $450 for everything, the transfer case to the boots to the super glue, like all that. And so that's much more cheaper than taking it to a shop and having them charge you an arm and a leg just to replace the front ADD and whatever else. So you really can't lose with this swap. For the V6s, your front drive shaft is just about going to be completely compressed. Mine is. It was a really tight fit getting it in there. I got it in, but I really haven't ran into any issues with it. I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to run with my drive shaft compressed. It's people in there, people that know why you shouldn't do that. I'm sure they can probably put in some information on that, but from my experience, I haven't ran into any issues with it. So, and I'm not really sure of an alternative on how to fix that. I know there are some options, but for you guys that know all that stuff, leave it in the comments for other people to check out. Me personally, I haven't ran into any issues with mine. So for the V8s, your transmission and your transfer case are going to sit back just a little bit farther than the V6s. So your drive shafts are in the front are going to be more okay than with the V6s. But again, I haven't ran into any issues. The next thing is a drive shaft spacer. I'll leave the link and I'll post the photo of which drive shaft spacer I got. I don't remember the exact thickness that I got, but I know it was one of the bigger thicknesses that they had. Get this drive shaft spacer and you'll be fine. It comes with bolts already and all that stuff. So that's the drive shaft spacer you're going to get. Like I said, I'll leave it down in the description below, and this is what the photo looks like. Now let's talk about the ADD, which is very important. When you're running a regular ADD that's actuated, you're going to run into problems, period. It is going to happen. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but it's going to happen at some point in time, just like it happened with mine. Mine was pouring water out of it. The ADDs just go. It just happens. So for me, the point of doing a whole manual transfer case was to have my 4-wheel drive working when I wanted it and when I needed it, and not have to worry about any issues. So that's why I did the ADD delete. There's like 3 options. 1, you can do it the way that I did it. 2, you can take the extension tube from a V8, from that front diff, swap that out. You don't have to worry about an ADD or doing this little ADD delete at all. Third option is you can do what some other people do, and they wire up a switch to their ADD and they hold the button and the ADD activates on and off. For me, screw that. I'm not fooling with that stuff, and that's the whole point that I did this swap in the first place, because when that goes out, your rear is going to be engaged, and your front, I believe, driver or passenger tire, I believe it's your front driver, will be engaged as well, but that front passenger won't. So you're still going to run into issues at some point in time. So that's why I'm so adamant about just deleting the whole thing in general.
Now, I know there's some people that talk about, oh, it's not good for your front wheels to be engaged all the time. So the V8 guys, when they're doing the swap, they're doing the exact same thing, and none of them have run into any issues with their transfer case. Now, touching on the wiring, just connecting the yellow wire and the brown and white wire will make all your flashing lights go off, and it'll make everything back the way it was. Now, I did as much research as I could to try to figure out if there was a way to get the wires to work. I did the best that I could find. If anybody else knows how to get those lights to wire up correctly, be my guest and go for it. But what I found was the best that I could do. So that's why I still added that stuff in the video anyway. Maybe that'll give somebody else an extra step on how to figure that out. But I mean, you know what gear you're in if you're in 4 low or 4 high. So there's really no need to worry about that. So that pretty much wraps up everything and all the information that I think you guys will need. Again, if you guys have any comments, leave them down in the comment section below. And I have my discount codes and sponsors down there as well for different companies, so you guys can check those out. Again, if you guys got any questions, let me know. I'm definitely looking to post more videos on the channel for the 4Runner. I definitely have a build video, definitely in the future, that I'll start doing probably when it gets a little bit warmer. There is an upgrade that's coming to the 4Runner here in the next couple weeks. It's a bit of a color change, that's all I'm gonna say. So we're gonna do that. I'm super stoked for that. So I'll be posting a video on that in the future. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next video.